Welcome. You're here. Welcome to the Everyday with Kate podcast. This is very exciting. Also, welcome friends to Everyday with Kay. I'm your host, Katherine. This is the podcast for the constantly curious community. And now that that's out of the way, please, everyone, welcome one of my best friends in the whole world. Kay, I'm not even going to use the name that I have you in my phone as, when I very much want to, but I think it will confuse the rest of the world.
I divulged that nickname to a few people here at work, and I get called that occasionally now.
It's so good. It's so good. The hint is that it rhymes with Samuel. And then if everyone could, if you can put that together in your brain, you're doing really well for the state of the world and how messed up everything is right now. How are
Snakes
you?
and planes and something going on
Snakes,
there.
planes. I get this.
Good. I'm finishing my first beverage that I pre-gamed before the podcast with that one. One of my buddies from Goose Island came in the other day and left me a 12-pack of beer hugs, or 6-pack, either way. So
That's fantastic.
once I finish that one, I'm switching over to one of our beer.
Yes. Speaking of one of your beers, here's the entire reason. Well, the reason that you're on is because I love you and I'm excited to talk to you. The other reason that you're on is that you are the head brewer at Homewood Brewing Company, located at 18225 Dixie Highway in Homewood, Illinois, which is why we're going to talk some beer today. And I'm so excited to do that. I feel like, I can talk beer down here, but I can talk it to the one person that I live with. Hugo, the dog, is not interested in beer conversation. You are going to be interested in beer conversation, which is great. All right, you're finishing up yours. I'm going to crack mine. I'm
There was Hugo
mine.
right there. I heard him.
You know what? We're going to hope that filters out. And if it doesn't, everyone, that was my dog. And this is life, and that's what happens. Good job to you. So I have, while you're finishing that sip, I have Tropical Rain. It's a sour with mango and blackberry. It clocks in at 5%. It's from Sunlamp Brewing, which is up in Bradenton, like an hour and a half from where we are recording. I'm very excited. You know my feelings about sours. They are strong and full of love. What have you got?
So, like I said, I just finished Goose Island, but he dropped me off some neon hug here, and I am just now switching over to Conversations, our Mexican lager. It's our current benefit beer that we've got out.
We are going to talk about your benefit beers. I read a little bit about Conversations on the website today in the exactly 3.7 minutes that I did of research to prepare for our interview. And I was like, that's great. Love a Mexican lager. I think that style is so great, so sustainable, and so wonderful. And I want to hear about that when we get into our main topic in our beer conversation. I actually would very much like to drink it looks like orange juice.
Oh, yeah. So I would say those, just anecdotally, that style of beer I love your glass, by the way.
Also, we love Craftmaster Grand. This is the glass style. Craftmaster Grand is the greatest glass style in the whole world.
But yeah, those lower ABV fruited sours are just kind of starting to become like one of the most popular beers, at least around me. So,
I wish that they were. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying it's been an interesting transitioning, opening up the brewery down here in the south suburbs, which is very different than the western suburbs, and it's very different palates, very different beer drinkers. Just kind of talking to the other breweries in the area around us, Rabbit and Flossmoor being our closest two neighbors, and then seeing what we're doing here. Yeah, it's like people are loving their fruit beers, they're loving their sour beers, so plenty of options for you right around here.
I'm very excited for my impending move back. This is delightful, and it's the kind of sour that isn't fruited to the point where you think you're drinking juice. It doesn't just taste like, we'll just say the quiet part out loud. It doesn't taste like Amaretti Magic. It's just this is a really good sour that is soured enough and has enough like kettle sour, and you can tell it's not a Brett sour. It's a kettle that's a lacto sour. It's so good. It's so good. I'm also really excited, and I harp on it all the time. I'm excited to try this in 10 minutes when the cold
warms up.
Right, when the cold is off of it and it gets a minute to like breathe and open up, and yeah.
I came in this morning. I've got a beer that I'm working on, a double IPA. It'll be a new one that we're coming out with, and trying samples straight out of the tank and it's coming out at 32 degrees. And I'm like, I can't, like, this is nothing. This is nothing. So you like pull the sample, let it wait for a while, and then you know what it's actually tastes like.
We all serve our beer too cold, and I will say it every chance I get. Everyone, just let your beer sit for a minute. Let it sit, let it warm up. Like your Mexican lager that you're probably about to take a sip of or already have has probably opened a little bit. I think they get a little like, I think they get very cool when they open. I love them.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
the Mexican lager is like we say it's like the after flavor and everything. It's kind of like you just had a tortilla, like little lime, little tortilla characteristic made with corn. So you're getting all the kind of like, all the Mexican flavors.
Yep. Yep. Every flavor that's delicious in the world right there. All right. So we've gotten through with what we're drinking. We're going to continue to like check in on how those are doing as they warm up. But why don't we tell folks how we met? And what do you remember? Because I mean, obviously, how did we meet?
So I like to tell people that we became friends the same way that people become friends in kindergarten. And it was alphabetical. That's how we became friends, alphabetically.
I mean,
So,
fair, very fair.
so you and Chris owned Exit Strategy, and I was the head brewer at Elmhurst, and so we just ended up getting stuck next to each other at festivals,
That is
and
true.
we and as loud and as abrasive as some personalities can be, we decided that we were fun people to be around.
Wait, hang on a
Maybe
minute.
abrasive's not a word. I was more speaking about my wife.
Yeah, all right. Okay,
So
that's I would.
my wife, Nikki, she's fantastic. She's lovely. She was coming out to help us at beer festivals a lot, and that's how the two of you got to know each other. And Chris and I would get to the point at beer festivals where we hated talking to the public, and Nikki would jump in and pour beers for both of our breweries at that point. She's a lot more outgoing, and I think we actually knew each other before I met Chris, just because I think you were at the first beer festival that I worked next to Exit Strategy at.
That sounds correct. I do know that when your lovely wife, who is my best friend, when we met, there was I think, a giant pause in the universe, and they were like, "Can two short, loud, type A women really do this?" And we were like, "Yeah, watch." We're both very we have personalities that fill rooms, which is wonderful. We love it. I don't know if it's abrasive though. You may need to take that back.
But either way, we met alphabetically.
The way we did, we met like we were in kindergarten. We met alphabetically. One of my earlier memories of like we are friends now wasn't just like well, you guys are moving close to where we were, and all of those things. We were at the Bloomingdale Beer Festival on like the other side of the Wolf Den Brewing parking lot, and we were sharing a tent, and there was much beer consumed, and good times were had.
I think that was the festival. I think that's the first festival that I really remember meeting you guys and hanging out with you guys.
Yeah.
Was Chris even there? I think it was just you.
No, Christopher was there.
Okay, well, you were the
didn't-
more, like I said,
I'm
you're the personality. You're the one that people remember.
Sure, we'll go with it.
I mean, he's my best friend, but you're the one that people remember.
These things are fair. They're fair. All right. So, beer festivals and all that good stuff. And we both are very into the beer world. But what other things are currently on your radar? What other hobbies are going on with you right now? Any other, and you always have a hobby? You literally always have a hobby or an interest or something like that you hyper focus on. What is something right now? And those are not offensive things. It's not like being called abrasive. It's different. So yeah, interests, hobbies, obsessions. What is the thing right now that you're like, ooh, I just can't get enough of learning about this?
Man, I am. So I will say I just had like somewhat related to that, I suppose. Father's Day being like a week and a half ago. I think I had like the perfect Father's Day. I got to build stuff, work on my deck, and in the background I was smoking ribs. And so I'm very much a creative person. I'm very much a maker. I like to build. I like to create. I like to see I like to see the object that I've been working on come to fruition. The deck is finally done in our backyard. I did a built-in bench, built-in bench around our and so that's been my most recent project. I love woodworking, but I just love creating. And that's ultimately what led me to be doing what I'm doing now, is just being able to be creative, but being able to be creative in a way that like I can see the enjoyment that other people get out of it. I get to see other people, like what I do. And, it's always a nice pat on the back when I get to finish up a day of work in the brew house here and go up front and see people drinking my beer and complimenting it and talking about it. And
Percent.
I think any creative person, be it some art form or what have you, ultimately we're all just looking for a little bit pat on the back.
Agree. 100% I agree. I think you're one of these right brainers, right? You want to do stuff with your hands and you want to make sure that like you can touch, you're tactile. You want to touch what you're doing. You want to really get in there and like feel it and look at it. I did hear about the deck. I'm very excited for you and I cannot wait to see it. I originally thought you said I put a bitch in the deck and I was like that's rude. No, it's a bench, but you sound a little Texas.
Sorry, she's not abrasive.
Never. She's an angel. So going back to being creative and seeing the final product of something that you've been working on, beer, which is why you are here, how we got here, and all of those things. Talk me through some of your beer history and your brewing history because it's cool.
So, like you mentioned, with my accent, I am from Texas. I don't think I sound like I'm from Texas. I know people that sound like they're from Texas, but you leave the state and everybody thinks that you're from there. So I grew up in Dallas. But kind of the fun thing about Dallas is there was no beer. I don't know why that's fun. So basically, I graduated high school, had some friends that moved to Fort Collins, Colorado. And in the late 90s, early 2000s, Fort Collins, Colorado was basically the mecca for craft beer. New Belgium and Odell had opened up, along with several other smaller breweries that were in the area. So at the ripe old age of 18 years old, I went up and visited my buddies in Fort Collins, Colorado, and they handed me a fat tire, which was way better then than it is now. Blonde
Absolutely.
lager bullshit that they turned it into. But they handed me one of the OG fat tires, and as a high school kid from Texas, I'd never had anything except for Coors Light, and that's how you say it in Texas, Coors. Shiner was basically the best thing that we could get, and they introduced me to good beer. Handed me a fat tire. The very next beer that I had was an Odell Easy Street Wheat, and I was like, "Holy shit! Like beer has flavor that I had never experienced before. I didn't know that it could contain." Went back home after that, and there just weren't any breweries in the area, so just kind of by luck, right down the street from one of my buddy's houses was this little homebrew store, and we walked by it every day. And we just popped in one day and started talking to Pat, the owner of Dr. Jekyll's Beer Supply, and Pat was like, "Hey, you know what? You don't have to be 21 to make beer." So we started kind of looking into it. Nikki, my wife, your best friend, she ultimately bought me a a homebrew kit. She was my girlfriend at the time, that's why I married her. Uh, but she bought me a homebrew
Cool.
kit for Christmas that year, and kind of the rest is history. I mean, I made 50 some odd batches on my homebrew kit. Got a job at the second brewery that opened up in the Dallas Fort Worth area, which was Franconia Brewing Company. Unfortunately, they're no longer around, but got a job with Franconia, and the owner brewmaster there, Dennis, really took me under his wing and taught me a lot about traditional beer and the history of beer. And coming, I'd been a home brewer for 4 or 5 years at that point. This is very early in the craft beer scene. But it was all about, at that point, strip the enamel off your teeth with 100 plus IBUs and stone ruination and shit like that. And that's, between like stone ruination and, the Belgian imports, that was really my introduction to craft beer along with Fat Tire and stuff. And then he kind of took me aside and was like, "Look, there's this thing called balance, and German beers." And he really taught me about German beer. He took me to Nuremberg. I got to stay at his parents' house in Nuremberg, got to go to all the breweries that he used to work at there. And really, like, over the course of 7 or 8 years working for him, I really grew from just being somebody who was into beer and liked to make it to somebody who had a great appreciation for the history, the styles, where it all came from. And now 17 years into brewing professionally, I still very much pride myself on brewing balanced beers. And I think that's a term that, balance can mean a lot of different. For me, balance means there's no overwhelming flavors. There's no overwhelming characteristics. When I make a fruit beer, it's a beer first, and those fruit characteristics are going to be nuances, and they're going to amplify, the flavors that are already present in the beer. I'm not gonna. I'm not a, you know, every beer has its place in the world, and
Does it?
you know what?
Does it?
I'm not gonna yuck anybody's yum. If people want to drink
Listen,
if people want to drink a smoothie sour, they can drink a smoothie sour. I'm not the guy that's gonna be making a smoothie sour.
this is a very diplomatic way to put it because at this point I'm like, you really want to drink a milkshake IPA? Is this what you really want to do? You want to take some No, absolutely not. You may not
I'm
be here to
lactose
yuck anybody.
intolerant, so that's like my out on that. Like I was like, oh, I
Listen,
can't make them.
we all carry Pepsid, don't worry. Like we all have you covered at all times. It's great. I think one of the things that I have always respected about your beer, and I have consumed gallons of your beer. Probably my own personal keg's worth, right? Like if we break it down into years and events and parties and things, you make very, very balanced beer like you were talking about. And I think what we can get into in brewing is seeing like things are skewed, right? Where it's either so bitter that you really can't taste anything else. Because bitterness itself is its own category of presence in the mouth. And then you're losing some of the cool characteristics that come with hops and things like that. You can actually lose characteristics from the yeast if all you're focusing on is bitterness. And I agree. I think your beer is so balanced. It finishes very cleanly, which for me is always the sign of somebody who is an accomplished brewer. Like if your beer is hanging out in my mouth past 10 seconds, I don't want that. I don't want something that's going to linger about. Finish clean, right? Oh God, it sounds like a crime scene. Finish clean and get out of there.
Well, ultimately, I mean, for
what I like from my beer.
anybody that's doing it professionally, I mean, we want people to drink more of it, and so you want them to want to take a next sip. You want them to take that next sip as fast as possible.
Well, that's the other thing is like there was a time period in craft where everything was so hopped up and so bitter that you would have these palate wreckers, and then that's what you would be drinking for the day. And if you were getting into double IPAs that were sitting around and hanging out in your mouth for so long and hanging out in your palate for so long, that's what you had. And you could have like 2.5 or 3 before that was it, right? And what's nice about portfolios at the places that you have been is that you make a very balanced portfolio as well, which I want to talk about in a few. But like you run the gamut with German beers being your specialty, but I know you branch out from German stuff all the time.
Yeah. So I was actually a week ago today. So last Wednesday, I was out hanging out at Dovetail, talking to Andreas, the brewer over there, and us, Dovetail, Goldfinger, and I think Great Central, maybe Art History. But we're like the only breweries in Chicagoland that can brew traditional German style beers. We can decoction mash. We can go through all the steps that a traditional German style law.
Decoction is the single greatest brewing word out there. Decoction's a great brew. It's just a good brewing word where you're like, it sounds so sciencey.
And it's a brewing word that every time that I say it, my assistant brewer is just like, God, it's like tomorrow's going to be long, isn't it? Because decoction, I mean, it adds a
Right.
significant, amount of time into the brewing process, but it gives you a characteristic in the beer that you really can't achieve otherwise.
No,
So we
you
did
can't fake a lot of things with German beer. You cannot fake good German beer. They have been doing it the best. They have been doing it the longest. They have been perfecting techniques for longer than we've all been around. I mean, that's the bottom line of it, right? Like they just know the way to do it. Speaking of Goldfinger, some of theirs go through a triple decoction process, and you're like, God bless America. That is, well, don't really, but
I did one triple decocted Bohemian Pilsner, and that was a very long day. I was like,
I
you
can
know what?
imagine. Never
Double
again.
decoctions are fine.
Totally fine.
No,
Totally fine.
we've got our Munich style Helles that we have on tap, and that goes through a decoction. Like I said, we had a Bow Pills on for a little while that was double decocted. And usually, anytime that I'm doing something kind of traditionally German style, I'm going to go through those multi steps and boil the shit out of the grains and hold decoction thing.
Do you want to give a quick Cliff Notes, like a 2 to 3 bullet point explanation of what decoction is for friends who may be listening because they know you, but not what that word means?
Yeah, so once upon a time, malt sucked.
Star White.
So and when I like give tours of the brewery and everything, it all starts with the malt and with here, I'm going to turn that big ass sack right there, 2,000 pounds of German style Pilsner malt. But the maltsters, their process starts before it ever gets to the brewery, and they've got a science and they've got an art to everything that they do, and they're producing some really great grain. Decoction came about before the maltsters were as good at their craft as they are now, and the grain just wasn't readily usable. So basically, what we're doing with the malt, I don't know how sciencey you want me to get into this, but we're taking the starches that are in the grain and we're breaking them down into sugars.
That's what I want.
Once upon a time, it was really, really hard to access those starches. And so we just had to boil the shit out of the grain. And you would go through multiple steps and it would really just kind of break down the grain. And that was called decoction. Now our malt is fully modified to the point where the enzymes are all already present. We really don't have to go through those decoction steps to free up the starches to convert them to sugars like we used to. But it does give a characteristic to the beer that you can't achieve otherwise. Traditionally, I guess in modern brewing, you never want your grain to go above, let's say, 174. Certainly, you don't want it to go above 180. And the thought is, once you get into those higher temperatures, you're going to start to pull tannins. You're going to start to get astringency out of there. Think about sucking on a tea bag. That's kind of the traditional way of talking about that flavor. But
Pass.
you can boil them during the decoction and you really don't get that characteristic from it. And it's all about like the amount that you're using. There's ratios that you go through. We're only boiling small portions of our grain, but we take our grain, we infuse it with water at a certain temperature. We take a little bit of that grain, we boil it, we add it back, and that raises through the steps to change those starches into the sugars that we're looking for. And ultimately, we want sugar because the yeast eats the sugar and it pees out alcohol and it farts out CO2, and that's where we get beer.
I pees out alcohol and farts out CO2. Put that on a shirt. I mean, we should. We should. I think that'd be a really good one. How's your Mexican lager? How's she doing getting all warmed up there? I sometimes gender beers. I can't explain why it started with Persephone. I started to gender beers. I don't know why the Mexican lager just became a she, but she did. How's she doing?
But pretty good, pretty good. It's at about 20% corn, flaked maize in the grist. So actually, as it warms up, you start to pick up just hints of this like kind of corn tortilla characteristic. The lime that we used in the beer is not from actual limes. So it is a new hop product called LLZ.
Tell me more, Brewer Cam.
Yeah, so LLZ is lemon lime zest. It's from Hopsteiner. Well, they were very creative with the naming of that one. It's from Hopsteiner though. So it's fun. Like the hop companies basically over the past few years, now that weed is starting to get legalized everywhere, and weed and hops are very similar to one another. And so the hop companies are like, hey, all these like extracts and tinctures that you're making out of cannabis, we could do the same thing with our hops. And so they're starting to make these terpene extracts and all these kind of different characteristics that they're able to pull out of hops now, largely because they've taken some cues from the cannabis industry. So what LLZ is, they call it a fractionated hop compound, but they distill it. And at different temperatures, different essential oils, different characteristics are basically going to vaporize off terpenes. And so they isolate the terpenes that have this lemon lime zest characteristic, bottle it up, sell it to us. And so we can add a 100% hop derived product. So there's still nothing in the beer, there's no extracts, there's no flavoring agents, so to speak, other than hops, because it's just a steam derived hop oil that tastes exactly like lemon lime zest. I love it because I like that bright, fresh citrus aroma, but I don't necessarily want the tartness of like lime juice in the beer. And that's what this gives you. It's still just a crisp Mexican lager on the palate, but you get this bright citrus aroma every sip that you take, and it's super, super refreshing. I've been crushing it since we came out with it.
Nice. We're gonna circle back to LLZ and other trends that we're seeing in beer because I absolutely want to talk more about that. But tell me a little bit about the charity program that you guys have. We've not actually talked about Homewood a ton, mostly because I want to focus on your beer and your history with brewing and things like that. But tell me about this charity beer.
Yeah, well,
It's a Mexican lager.
it is a Mexican lager. One of the reasons that I came on board with Homewood to be a part of this project. So we opened up in October, but I've been here for about 2 years now, getting this brewery up and running. And it was largely because I appreciated kind of their ethos and their what they were going for. We're a green facility. The brew system behind me is incredibly energy efficient. We save heat, we save water. We do as much as we can to be as green as possible in the brewery. Uh, Living rooftops on the top of this building. But aside from like the environmental aspects, there's a lot of giving back that we do. Carmela, our CEO and owner, so she's the mother of Juice World. In his honor, she's got a foundation called Live Free 999, and one of the beers that we produce here at Homewood, uh, number one always on our tap lineup, goes to benefit her foundation. A portion of the proceeds from this beer in particular and any associated merchandise that we do with it goes to help out Live Free 999. Live Free 999 is for at-risk youth, suicide prevention, mental health awareness, substance abuse prevention. So it's and we're all about giving back. That's kind of what we're here for. We to give back to the community, to give back to people in need. We work with HF, the local high school here, and they do a talk once a year at HF, and it's all about just like helping out the kids and making sure that everybody's okay. Um, so another kind of fun part of the beer is we've partnered with local artists throughout Chicagoland. So if you come into the brewery, we've got murals on our wall. One of them actually is of Juice World upstairs. Oh, it's terrible. The guy that did that mural, his name is blanking me right now, but he had done a mural in the city that people loved that had ultimately gotten painted over. So this is one of his few protected pieces because he's just a Chicagoland street artist. And so we hired him to come in here and do a mural upstairs. We've got this mural that's actually on the glass is
Yeah,
inside from I can remember that name pretty easy because it's written right here on the back of the glass. Tanner
good job,
Woodford did
buddy.
this one. But so every time we come out with a new beer, it's kind of the idea is that let's say quarterly, every few months or so, we're going to come out with a new beer. It's always going to be a very approachable beer. It's always going to be a very drinkable beer because we want to be able to sell as much of it as possible. Because the more of it we sell, the more that we can give back to charity. So
So I
Mexican Lager, I came out with it right around Cinco de Mayo. It'll be our charity beer for summertime. When we switch over to a new beer in the fall, we'll pick a new piece of art that we've got on our wall from a Chicagoland artist. So their art will go onto the glassware, their art will go onto the merch. Proceeds from the merchandise and the beer will go back to charity. It's just a way to kind of like tie everything in and keep it local, keep it community driven.
which I think is one of the best parts about Homewood is that ethos and is the way that they are operating their charitable giving and their community involvement. As you well know, building a community that will also help a community is something that I feel super strongly about. And it was very nice to hear of all of the good work that they are doing, in addition to a lot of the environmental stuff, which is huge when it comes to brewing because we make some waste. Like brewing it's a hard industry if you're like, oh my God, look how much we're throwing away. Like
Yeah,
there's
I mean,
just a lot of waste involved in brewing. So to hear that there are steps that we can take, and I know the brew system there, the brew house there is huge and tech forward, but also really represents a lot of like some of the cool advancements in brew house design and in brew house functionality too, right?
absolutely. Yeah, I think industry wide, especially for smaller breweries, looking around our size, maybe slightly bigger, maybe slightly smaller, but you're looking at about a 5-to-1 water to beer ratio. So for every pint of beer that we make, there's about 5 pints of water that end up being consumed for cleaning, for cooling, for something in the brewery. We're about half that here, so we're down closer to the 2.5 pints per beer. So incredibly efficient system. Um,
That's great. I didn't
and
know
it's
that part. That's awesome.
yeah, it's there's a some big ass tank. Actually, the biggest tanks that you can see on the screen solely exist for like storing water. But like I said, we capture heat from the brewing process. So our kettle, the chimney doesn't go out the roof; it goes to a steam condenser. We condense all of the steam back into water, and the heat energy that comes off of that steam just gets pumped back into our hot liquor tank. So we're running from our cold liquor tank back into our hot liquor tank. Actually, no new water is being used. It's all water that we already have stored in cold liquor. and we're cycling it through our steam condenser, and it's going right back into our hot liquor tank at about 200 degrees.
I had no idea any of this was happening. This is so cool.
Yeah, so throughout the hour long or so boil, 45 minutes, hour long, depending on what kind of beer we're making, we're capturing about 2 barrels of hot water into our hot liquor tank, and that's just all free energy. That's free heat that would just be going out the roof otherwise.
I mean, it's a very Midwest dad approach of like close the door, you're letting the air conditioning out, or like close the door, you're letting the heat out. So, you guys have gone a real Midwest dad on this, which I think is great, right? You're keeping it all in. It's incredible.
I mean, I think it's I'm just a dirty hippie at heart. So anything that I can do to save the earth I'm going to try to do it. But ultimately, it all started in my origins in the brewing industry, and for Germans, it's not being about dirty hippies. Germans, I mean, we always
No,
used to joke
it's
that
not.
our rule at Franconia was safety third. And they're like, well, what's the first two? They're both efficiency. And if you forgot the first one, remember the second one, because efficiency is the most important thing. Be that efficiency in your workday, efficiency from energy uses, whatever it is. So we had a very, very efficient brewery, especially for as old as it was back in the day. And I've just kind of carried that with me everywhere I've been. My former brewery before I came here, I kind of helped build out the system a little bit more so we could capture a lot of the heat. We could capture a lot of the wastewater that would have otherwise been going down the drain. And so
It's
being able to
incredible
bring on
work.
a system like this now, it's really, I mean, for all of its advancements and technology and everything, and sometimes I just wish I could grab a manual valve and yank it instead of tapping at a fucking screen. But the fact that it has the ability to do all of that cool good stuff is I think one of my favorite.
Absolutely, 100%. Speaking of past breweries, you're also a pretty highly decorated guy, aside from being a dirty hippie. No, did you not? Do you not walk around? That feels weird. Like you should probably walk around wearing them.
There's
Are
one
you,
of them hanging right around
okay.
there
You know
somewhere.
what? Why don't you can send me a picture of your pile of medals. Our medals ended up in a milk crate. Like they're dusty and they ended up in a milk crate. But you have got it. You got a bunch of medals, buddy.
I got a few. So only here at Homewood, we're pretty young. I was actually registering for the Great American Beer Festival earlier today. So registration's due by the end of the week, and we're getting ready for that one. Kind of planning on what beers I'll have ready.
Okay, okay.
But so we haven't entered a lot of competitions. Actually, we've entered all of one competition since we've been open here at Homewood. But we came in runner up to the aforementioned Goldfinger in the Legends of Lager hosted by the Chicago Beer Society.
Nice.
So, again, just kind of confirmation that we're doing good lager beers. I mean, anytime that I come in runner up the Goldfinger, that's a
I
win in my
mean,
book, honestly, because Tom's
listen,
making some
anyone who's
amazing
second.
shit.
So I was just gonna say, anybody who's coming in second to Tom, that's a first for you in general because you're not gonna get him. Like we're not, no, we're just not gonna be him. He is just you were first B.
Yeah,
He's
but
just
beyond that,
first A. You were first.
I've
You're right.
a couple years ago, I got a GABF for my Martzen. I've got a GABF, or sorry, for my Amber Lager. Several years before that, I got a GABF medal for my Martzen. So I'm definitely a lager guy. But then, various other, whatever random competition.
Yeah,
One of the
but
ones
it's cool.
one of the ones that I'm most proud of is my win for the malt liquor at
No.
Micro Brew Review
Nope.
several years
Nope.
ago.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You want
Judge's
to see
choice,
offensive?
best
You
beer
want to
at the
see?
festival. I don't know if you remember that.
I'm sorry, Senator. I do not recall.
Best beer at
Man.
the festival with a
Okay.
imperial Japanese rice lager
I don't.
malt
I don't
liquor.
remember
You give
any.
me
Okay.
malt liquor,
Here's
I'm
the
gonna
thing.
fucking win with it.
Here's the thing. There's our small E. We just got our very first tiny E for expletive. Good job. I remember not much from all of the microbrew reviews that I have attended, but there are definitely shining pockets of glory in my memory. And yeah, no, I remember that. It was because you bribed the judges with
That was a
the
blind.
koozies.
The judging was we won the judge's choice. It was blind. The judging
Sure,
actually happened a week before. But yes,
sure.
we did hand out the beer in little
Mm-hmm.
miniature sized paper bags because it was a malt liquor. Why not?
You sure did. God was like, yes. You know what? I'm not a competitive person at all. So good job. Great job. I do remember that win. It was a good win. It was a good win. Oh my God, malt liquor. That was who we. It was a great beer. I liked that beer. I thought beer was good. Really good. Those are some good festivals. Whoo, what a day those days are. They are long
I always
and
look forward to
fun.
microbrews still.
I do too. This is going to be the first year that I will miss. I am in like 16 years. I will not be at this year's, which is sad, but whatever. It's a
Well,
good day.
well, I'll drink a bloody for you before we get started.
That sounds really good. Yes, do make sure to do that and have your wife steal a golf cart and we'll call it a day. We'll call it a day. One of our very first capers, stealing a golf cart. Anyway, I know. So we were talking about LLZ earlier, and I want to quickly touch on trends in beer because we're seeing. I feel like the beer industry in the past 4 to 5 years has gotten really like, this is a trend, this is a trend, this is a trend. And it's like all over the place. And we look like a wild EKG because things are coming and going and popping and all these things. So in some respects, we keep hearing like, no one's drinking anymore. And then in other respects, we hear, but they are, but this is what they're drinking. And this is what's happening. What are some trends in beer that you're either like, yeah, this is going to be really cool, for example, LLZ, or trends in beer where you're like, this sucks, or both?
Well, so I do. I'm having fun with the LLZ. I'm having fun playing around with all of these terpenes. I don't want to like shill for any companies or anything, but I have
Just a
been
core.
this that stuff has been pretty fun to play around with. We
Hang
went to
on.
some talks at CBC this year and got to actually learn a lot about how they're producing these terpenes, the way that they're being utilized in the brewing industry. Lots of taste tests and things like that. It's been a fun way. So what I'm doing with them right now, and like I mentioned earlier, this whole fruit beer thing is kind of really taking over, especially down here in the South Burbs. And so we've got a beer on tap right now with Flossmoor Station, our closest neighbor, and it's kind of fun. Like one of the absolute youngest breweries in Chicagoland, and they are one of, if not the oldest in Chicagoland now. They've been open since '96, I believe.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they've been around a while.
I don't think I knew that. I always thought our oldest two were Rev and Goose.
When I lived in Texas as a home brewer, I heard tale of this Flossmoor Station, and it was one of the first breweries that I actually visited, just coming up here to visit in like the early 2000s, because they had won an ungodly amount of, I mean, they were one of the few breweries that existed, but the amount of medals that they had won and basically created the style of American brown and defined it. And the Pullman Brown, which they still make over there, was the defining style of the American brown ale for the longest time.
Incredible.
But it was really cool kind of getting to get together with Jake, the head brewer over there. He's been there for a couple years now. He and I have become pretty good friends. Borrow a cup of sugar from your neighbor, you want to be good friends with them. So we got down and,
Wait,
and we
you're
were
not allowed to have other friends. Sorry. Rude.
um but we sat down and we're drinking some beers and talking about what was popular, and we're like, well, what's been really popular is fruit beer, and something that we talked about, and something that I heard when I was at CBC this year, is people are very much drinking for occasions now, and we've kind of like, I feel like we've lost that middle range of ABV. People are either drinking to get fucked up, or they don't want that at all, and they're drinking. We already got one,
It's fine. Oh
but
no, it's fine.
it's either that or they don't want it. They don't want to be inebriated at all. And so I like we've kind of lost this like 5, 6, 7% range. People were going for the 9 pluses, and they're going for the 5 and unders. And so we were like, well, people were drinking fruit beer. I mean, hazy IPA still reigns supreme, and people want booze. So Jake and I put out a 10% peach hazy IPA. But so, like I said, a couple weeks ago, we were over hanging out at Rabbit. I'm talking to Tobias, the head brewer over there at Rabbit. I'm like, Tobias, what's your best selling beers? It's like fruited sours. It's like, man. I was like, that's what people are doing. And he's got the lower ABV kind of trapped with the fruited sours. But I mean, and that's kind of the trends that we're seeing. And so the way that I'm using these terpenes and extracts and things isn't, I'm not going like full on with them. There is a certain large brewery that may or may not make the best selling craft beer in America right now, who is part of that talk. And they said they're using a lot of it right now. And I don't know if it's public information or anything, but for their like test batches, they're using a lot of these like kind of fruity terpenes. And I'm using largely as top notes. So we've
Okay.
got a mango wit beer that we've got on. It uses coriander rather than bitter orange. I'm using a fresh mango puree. But as you may know, a lot of times when you're fermenting with fruit, you lose a lot of the aromatics off.
I don't think people understand sometimes when we talk about putting fruit in a beer, the amount of fruit that you have to put into this beer during process to get anything out of it. And so much fruit can fall off, get lost. You've got nothing. I mean, you rarely get a ton of fruit on the nose, which, I mean, everyone should still be sticking their face into their pint glass and you should be smelling your beer. You should be picking up whatever those notes are. But it's one of those, yeah. So it requires an ungodly amount of fruit to get fruit into a beer. It isn't like, put a mango inside. Like, no. You
Yeah.
don't just
So
put a
yeah. So
mango inside.
I mean, our mango wit beer has somewhere on the order of 300 or so pounds of mango puree thrown into the batch of the beer. And then at once fermentation sets, because we want all the fruit to ferment out, because we don't want, because I brew beer that, I want people to be able to take home and not explode in their garages or anything like that.
Imagine.
I like people like that. I don't want them to die because of something that I made.
That's
Um,
fair.
but through fermentation, you're going to lose a lot of the characteristics from the mango. And so what they've done is they've started to pull off different extracts. And so it's not always hop derived. Sometimes it's botanically derived, but a lot of these terpenes, one right here, and this tiny little jar of mango, that's enough for a barrel of beer. And
Come on.
that's gonna give this super bright, fresh top note of mango to a barrel of beer. So I'm just throwing a little bit of these terpenes, these
Mhm.
essential oils, basically, into the beer, and it just gives it that bright, fresh top note. Did the same thing with the beer that we just came out with. This is my attempt to figure out what the hell people are drinking these days. So I just came out with a pina colada inspired beer.
Familiar with the pina colada beer.
Yeah,
May have had one of those before.
pineapple puree, toasted coconut, and pineapple terpenes to give a lot of that bright, fresh top note in there. And again, about 10%. And yeah, people have been very much enjoying that beer.
I'll tell you, I think it's interesting the way that tastes have changed, and I think you're right. I have noticed as a beer consumer out of my element down here that I'm specifically looking for lower ABV things. Because I think the higher ABV sometimes you can lose, I believe, and I believe that down here, I don't believe that everywhere, that you can lose a lot of the skill when you're just focused on the ABV number. And that's, I mean, that's a very real thing of like, I'm just going to make a 12%er, but it tastes a little bit like nail polish. Like, oh,
I think you can
okay.
you can see that from a lot of the breweries that are coming out with beers now that have you know, it's just got that big ass 10% number splashed on the front of the can right there. And that's almost more important than the branding of the beer itself is the ABV that the beer has. And these things are coming in 19.2 ounce cans
Yeah,
too.
you know what?
And there's one reason for those to exist, and it's
There's only one reason for those to exist, and it ain't flavor profiles, and it ain't depth of and characteristics, and it ain't style, and it ain't balance, and it ain't skill. None of
and
those
and
things.
speaking of amaretti, I mean those things have so much fruit flavoring and crap shoved into them to make them not taste like beer.
Not that we don't love Amaretti. Everybody's used Amaretti. They're a totally fine company. We really do love Amaretti, but like, woof on some of these, right? So it sounds like to me, rolling into our next little discussion, which is lovingly titled Can I Be Bitchy? Because everybody can. One of the things to be bitchy about is like we can't really track any way that people are consuming things anymore because it just changes from day to day to day, right?
Yeah, there's
Anything,
absolutely no loyalty anymore.
there's no loyalty. It's so weird. It's not great. It's so strange. Is there anything non-beer that's currently bugging the absolute shit out of you that you're like, you know what? Let me just vent for a quick minute. It doesn't have to be anything of current news. It can be other stuff. If there's other stuff. If there's not, bitch about bombs.
Well, yeah, I guess we could all do that. But
We could all do that.
you know,
We should
I
probably not, but
I
go ahead.
do I do very well. On that note, I do very much like to think of beer in the brewery as being a place where you don't have to deal with that shit. And so, you know, regardless of where your position may lie, I want you to keep it outside the doors here. Come inside,
Mm-hmm.
enjoy a beer. I don't want to talk about that bullshit with you. And that's
100%.
really, I mean, I think that's
100%.
I think that's kind of what we try to do. It's supposed to be a place to be able to come and enjoy yourself and relax
I agree.
and not
I couldn't
deal with
agree with you more.
that
So
crap.
anything else just making you nuts right now?
I mean,
Like, okay, like mine that I was speaking about recently was giant pickup trucks. that have side view mirrors that are exactly 5 feet off the ground, which is also where my head is. And so I smash, like, if I'm not paying attention, which as we know is never, then like I end up hitting my head all the time on like giant pickup truck side view mirrors because nobody needs a truck that big. Your truck's not that big.
No,
I don't hit my head on your mirror, which is
try to
nice.
I try to keep the smallest truck that I can. Got to have a truck so I can move kegs around and things like that.
Right. It's the purpose of a truck. Anyway.
I don't know. I'm sitting here with my mind like completely in beer mode, so I was like, what else
No,
do I
it's
think
fine.
about? Toddlers. I don't know. Like that's
You know what I could bitch about? Bedtime changes.
that's that.
You don't have to have a thing to bitch about. I mean,
I've
we're
got a
running over time wise anyway.
I've got an almost 3 year old. So the bane of my existence is not understanding why I put on the wrong version of Toy Story that day.
You know what, man? That's on you. And you need to start figuring your life out and get the right Toy Story version on there. Speaking of, I got to get that kid a present. He's getting something. I don't know what it is yet. Yeah. All right. So,
But I mean, I
3 year
guess
olds.
yeah. Within the industry, I don't know. There's so many things going on now, be it RTDs and weed beverages and whatever else it is. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like I said earlier, like I don't want to yuck your yum. Get your jollies off however you want to get your jollies off.
Sure.
I'm gonna make beer, and I think that's
You
there
and
was
I
a
landed exactly the same spot on this. Like, you want to do this, that's fine. If you feel like you got to keep up with the Joneses, that's fine. If you got to do this because you got to survive, then fine. But at the same time, yeah, like beer. Here for the
I think
beer.
even as an industry, I think recently we may have started to lose focus a little bit. I don't know exactly what it's like down there in Florida, but I do have a little
Neither
bit
do
of an
I.
insight into what it's like up here in Illinois. And even because we are positioned in a way that we can make these Delta 9 beverages and things like that, I feel like a lot of the breweries, when they started seeing sales decline from beer, they were very quick to jump on to the non-beer options. As someone who has been doing this professionally for 17 years, people are still drinking more beer now than they were when I started. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's an educational opportunity, and again, coming down here to the south side from the west side. West side was lousy with breweries. South side, not so much, and it's very much educational. And we're teaching people about beer. And I'm not gonna throw in the towel and start making Delta 9 stuff. And again, drink it, enjoy it. That's
Sure.
fine,
Yes.
but that's not
Yes.
what I do.
Absolutely.
I make beer, and
I like
and
that.
and I think just largely as brewers, we kind of need to remember that we're brewers, and we got into this for a reason. And you can change things up if you want to, but I think we need to maintain focus on the beer.
I couldn't agree with you more. Like, if I tried, truly, I think you just said everything that I would ever want to say about that. Are you ready to shake beer out of your brain and answer three very random questions that have nothing to do with beer?
Oh yeah,
And you have your questions ready too.
I did. One of them we kind of got.
Wait,
Mine were a little beer
wait.
focused, and we covered one of them.
We can do it again. Do you want to go one for one, or do you want to go three and three?
It's your podcast.
Oh, that's true. We'll do three and three. All right, ready? Metal or foam koozie?
Ooh, I don't use metal very often, but I really like them. And when they
Okay.
get wet, they don't lose their koozability. A
Their
foam koozie when it gets
usability.
Well, a foam koozie when it gets wet, especially like in Florida, you're hanging out by the water, your foam koozie
No,
gets wet. I was at the beach on Sunday here. My foam koozie got all wet, and it started warming my beer up because it's it's like pulling the heat energy.
it's just rude. It's rude of that kooz. All right, so metal.
Don't use them very often, but definitely a superior product.
It is a superior product, not as zooable though.
No, you can't shove them in your pocket.
Can't shove them in your pocket. Favorite pasta shape? All right, some nooks, some crannies. Really hanging on to that sauce.
Holds on. Yeah.
All right, I like it. I like it. Now before we hit record, we were discussing your hair. There's one curl that's really doing the most right now. Oh my God, that curl is
This
like
guy right
awesome.
here. I
That
could
guy
get my.
right there. Yeah.
There we
Okay.
go. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. So all right, dirty hippie? What's the worst hairstyle you've ever had?
Oh geez, I the reason that I have my hair as long as I do now is because of my childhood trauma from getting haircuts. which only came from my father. And so like I basically lived like the first like 9 or 10 years of my life getting haircuts in the bathroom from my dad. And
Okay.
like I mean just like, the worst possible like chili bowls and just like hack jobs. He's like, "Oh, Cam needs bangs today."
Tell me pictures of this exist somewhere.
I hope not. There's not a lot of photos of me as a child.
That's a shame.
Fortunately, our generation of parents just kind of like parented from the other room. And so they didn't really pay attention to what I
Right.
was doing.
Yeah. Very much
Other than
like
when they grabbed me to chop my hair up. So yeah, this
Cam
is
with
this is 2 years from my last haircut, just because I'm sure to be traumatized the next time I go. I
well,
will
you
be.
you
It's
are
hot though.
due.
I am due. It's
Yeah.
about every 2 years or so that I go get
It's real short and then yeah, uh-huh. I am living now for a picture of Cam with bangs.
it.
That's all I want to see. It's all I need in my whole. That's what I need.
1988 Cam with a chili bowl and like the front part just a little shorter for some reason.
Bowl tipped back just a little weed nipped too far. It wasn't right on top of the crown. It was like shifted. Oh my God. Every word of this is giving me a lot of life. All right, your turn.
All right. So I was curious because I am unfamiliar with the beer down there. I don't want you to
Okay.
maybe call out like, I've been a few times and we've talked, offline, not on this podcast, about how the water down there sucks for making beer.
It sure does.
And
It
so
sure
like
does.
the beer selection isn't great. But I'm wondering if you found a favorite brewery or even
Yes.
maybe not necessarily a favorite brewery, but a favorite beer that you tend to
Yes.
go to.
Both. So we have found a local. That local is Point Bell. Love
I've
Point
got one of their
Bell.
t-shirts
You do
from
have
you.
one of their t-shirts? Yeah, you do, and it was from me. We love Point Bell. It's a small brewery. They're doing excellent work. And they are one of the few places around where you can't actually. There aren't hints of how bad the water is here. The water is bad here, and we don't pay a lot of attention when we talk about beer to the importance of water quality. And when you are in a swamp, and all of it, just these guys are on so much reverse osmosis and like so many filtration things, but you sometimes you can't de-swamp the swamp. Point of Bell is doing fantastic and wonderful work. I have a number of favorite beers from them. One of them is their Rasavesa, which is a Mexican lager, and they'll do something called a dirty ashtray, where they dip like the whole rim of the can, like this whole part of it, into
Like
tahini.
kind of like yeah.
And then just like forcibly shove a lime into it. It's great. It's wonderful. Love that. Always really good. Their sour program is really nice. They do some very cool, very off sours that are really, really lovely. Like they did a spruce sour that was just, it was so interesting and so cool. And then I think jointly in the house, one of our favorites is their full breakfast stout, which is just this, it's just a gorgeous breakfast stout. It's just beautiful. And they put it in a little coffee mug. It's so cute. We love Point of Bell. We also did an Ian hit. Point of Bell was a donation site for the community. And so when we did our Hurricane Ian fundraiser at the shop, we sent all of the supplies for the Fort Myers area to Point of Bell in big giant boxes. My parents schlepped down some boxes and like we became part of their fundraiser as well. So like the businesses did a little thing and we are there. We try to go once a week if we can because it's nice to get out of the house. We know the bartenders, so we can count like two more people that we know down here. It's wonderful. There it is. Long answer. Sorry.
No, no. All right. So it was a question that you asked me, but it might be different down there. Like the beer trend, the next, or the maybe the next beer trend that you think is going to happen. What's going to be the next wave?
I
Please
It's
give us the
hard.
insight so we can all make a lot of money off of it when it happens.
Sure. The next beer trend like up there, down here in general.
Wherever.
I just, you know what? I don't see lagers going away anytime soon. I think the more lagers that we're doing, the better. I think just back to your point about if we're going to go, knock your 12%er out, there's that faction of people who don't ever want that. And I think lagers and real light beers are just going to be a thing. Now down here, their portfolios are very light heavy. You don't see a ton of stouts for good reason. I don't believe that stout has a season, but when it's hot all the time and your face is melting the minute you walk outside, like stouts don't always sound great. So the portfolios are very light, and I think that's probably coloring a little bit of the answer. But I don't see lagers going away anytime soon. I think we had that big lager hit, and now people are like, "Ooh, that is crisp and that is clean and that is easy." And I think we've lost a lot of people diversifying what they drink too. I mean, IPAs and hazies aren't going anywhere, right? We know that. You know what I would love to say? You know what would make my heart so full? Is if I could say English brown ales are the next big trend. They are not, but they're so delicious.
I wish I could sell so one of our neighbors, Flipside down the road here, he makes amazing like English style beers. And I swear he's like one of the only brew between him and Midwest Coast. Like I don't like they're making amazing English style beers, and I don't know how they do it and keep them on tap and are able to actually sell the damn things because I love them, but it's not a style that like really moves very well.
It's they're real hard to move. They're real hard to move. Anyway,
I literally while you were talking, I just saw it pop up on my screen. Brewers Association member update: principles for cannabis and intoxicating hemp. Like, can we just
move
Brewers
on.
Association? It's the Brewers Association. It's not the Weed Association.
No, I my head hurts thinking about it sometimes. It does. All right, what's your last one?
Your favorite yacht rock group? If
You
you can
know,
nail it down to one.
I can. Well, no, I can. No, I can't. First of all, I love me some Hall and Oates. Love some Hall and Oates, right? Maybe
There was
Hall a
there
smidge
was a
more.
Hall and Oates cover band when I lived down in Dallas called Hauling Boat.
Okay,
Pretty
I
good.
love it.
Pretty
I
good.
love it. Love some Hall and Oates. Also, you know what? I love some Michael McDonald with a fiery, fiery passion. I love him. I love him. I love him. I also did not know until probably like maybe 6 or 7 years ago that Michael McDonald was an original Doobie Brother. Blew my mind. So yeah, but bring me all the yacht rock all the time. Yacht rock Sunday in this house. I mean, I work on Sundays now, but like it's generally yacht rock Sunday and smooth jazz Saturday. So you know, if you ever want some really, really shitty music for your weekends that makes my neurodivergent brain feel good, come on down. Yeah,
I was
those are
originally
good.
going to ask about smooth jazz, but decided to switch it to yacht rock.
God, smooth jazz. I mean, we could talk about Kenny G all day. All right. So for friends that want to come and support you and drink your beer, they can go and visit Homewood Brewing Company at 18225 Dixie Highway, or you can check out their socials, Homewood Brew.
For y'all that are in the city of Chicago, Dixie Highway is literally just the south end of Western. So it turns into Dixie Highway eventually. And it goes all the way down to Florida.
Okay, everyone, Star Wipe, the more you know. Well, that's great. So Homewood Brewing, again, socials, homewoodbrew.com. Go drink Cam's beer. It is very delicious. I can attest from personal exposure to Cam's beer for some time. And then, speaking of communities and joining communities, join this community. It's fun. Cam's a part of this community, right? Look at you, the
I'm
first.
so happy to be your inaugural guest.
I am very happy that you're my inaugural guest as well. You can find the show on Facebook and you can find the show on Instagram and our socials. We are currently on YouTube and Spotify. I cannot express enough the importance of subscribing, like liking and watching, and all of those things are great. They're so good and they're so helpful. But the biggest and most helpful thing that you can do on platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all of those places and YouTube is to subscribe. It takes no time to smash the subscribe button, as the kids say.
Smash that button.
Smash that button, kids. I have a couple of things that I got to do before we say goodbye. The first is I need to read a list of our Kickstarter supporters for this week. I am doing a Kickstarter. Why a Kickstarter? Because when you're a one gal show, sometimes it takes a little bit extra to do the things that you need to do and to do those things correctly. You can go to Kickstarter.com and search Everyday with K if you are so inclined to contribute. One of the tier, actually all of the tiers get this. There are 3 different tiers and every single tier gets names read at the end of an episode. I am very, very excited. And I have a clipboard for everything. I have named my supporters the Love Bugs because that's cute. All right, here we go. Ready? Ray Rosa, first one. I love you so much, buddy. Thank you so much. Future Realtor, Carrie Delaney. Thank you so much. Demi Grounds, who we know from beer, who is just a delightful human person. Longtime high school friend, Mitch Robertson. Thank you, Mac. And because he loves when I read his full name out loud, Michael John Esther. Thank you so very much. I love you very much. And then the original love bug in my life, Stacey Kern. I love you. Thank you so much for supporting. This is great. If you also want to hear your name read online with feeling and expression and all of those things, go ahead and donate to the Kickstarter campaign. And we, meaning I just me, would totally appreciate it. So yeah, Cam, what a delightful conversation we've had.
Yeah. Well, this
It's been a
was a
delightful.
blast.
I would listen to us.
I had fun. I think it was cool conversation. And
See?
like while the kids aren't brewing anymore or drinking anymore, it gave me something to do instead of brewing.
There you go. See, like everyone's doing stuff, and we got to have an afternoon beer together, right? Which is always fun. I mean, okay, well, you go. Listen, you guys, the three of you outdrink me every time. It is because I am slow, and I will not apologize for that.
I've got an open bar right over that way
So
that
you're gonna have another beer.
I'm about to go hang out at, and it's just after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so we are nice and slow, and I don't have to worry about bothering anybody.
There you go. I think that's absolutely wonderful. Please hug your son. Please hug your wife. And again, I cannot thank you enough for coming on and hanging out. And I'll see you in a month.
Yay!
Yay! All right, buddy. I'll talk to you soon. I love you.
You too. Love you. Bye.
All right, bye.